I think Dana is trying to be something that he's not.
It just seems like he is not doing what he's comfortable with.
He has a mind for the passing game.
Yeah.
Use your mind for what it's good at.
45, 40, 35, 40, he's gonna go! It's time, people, feel us!
Big Red Junkies.
Day by day, he gets better and better! He gets better and better! If we die, we die!
Man, woman, and child in that, put him in the aisle!
Bring that trophy back to Lincoln!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into this episode of the Big Red Junkies. I am BJ. This is Jed. This is Matt. We're going to recap Iowa, the shit show that was.
I had to get a little drunk for this show because I couldn't do this recap sober.
Yeah.
This was too much.
If I didn't have to work tomorrow, I would be right there with you.
It's too much.
Yeah. No, that was not a fun game.
No.
It was not a fun game. We actually spent the majority of the holiday weekend, including the end of the week last week, with sick kids in the house, which resulted in the adults getting sick as well later in the weekend, which is why the show's coming to you a day late, FYI. But, yeah, that game was probably really what turned my stomach more than anything else.
Yeah, it wasn't very fun.
No. Are there any positives we can highlight from it? I mean, Emmett Johnson ran his ass off.
Yeah, Emmett Johnson was the biggest highlight of the game for Nebraska.
Not just the biggest. I would say he's the only.
You got to give some credit to the offensive line. They played a pretty good game.
Are we allowed to give credit to the offensive line?
I'm going to give credit to the offensive line.
I know.
Especially a couple of them that struggled this year.
It's not going to stop me from saying...
Pritchett was actually... He was blocking his ass off this game.
Yes.
I really, truly believe, not that we're trying to jump in the offensive line conversation right away, but I truly believe if he had started from the beginning and been given starting opportunity from the beginning, he would have had a light years different.
I just think if he had another year here...
We're going to get to see next year what that looks like.
That's my thing. I think he's going to be really good next year. That was my point.
We're going to see what that looks like as long as he sticks around.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens there. But we're recapping Iowa. Then we're going to get into some debates. A little bit about the state of the program. Obviously, it's Tuesday night. We already all know that John Butler's been fired.
Mm-hmm.
As some would say, rightfully so, when you look at how disgraceful, especially the last two games of the season were, but specifically the run defense for the entire year. Other people would disagree with that. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about Matt Rhule. We're going to talk a little bit about the roster. We're going to talk a little bit about the future of Nebraska football after we recap the Iowa game, which I want to bust through as fast as possible, kind of like they did as a saw to us in the second half. Jed, roll through those questions and tell us how many I got right.
Who will have more all-purpose yards, Emmett Johnson or Caden Weegan? Obviously, Emmett Johnson dominated that one, 239-72. Everybody got that one right.
He had a hell of a game.
Yeah.
Monster game. I really think that all of the award stuff would have shaken out very differently if he hadn't had a down game against Penn State. But
I mean, again, I don't think he necessarily had a down game. He did have over 100 yards. He had 140 total yards. It's not a down game.
You're not wrong.
I think it's more about maybe you stat pile him in the, those two, high school games that we played at the beginning of the year. And maybe if he would have been playing more like this, and not just him, I'm not trying to criticize him because even the offensive line wasn't playing well in the first half of the season.
Yeah.
If they were run blocking for him like they were in the last 5 games-ish.
Well, and it wasn't as much of a requirement that they do so and that he puts up so many yards when Dylan Raiola was in the game.
Yes.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
I am curious to know when the last time was we put up 200-plus yards with a single running back on Iowa.
Well, I can tell you
not against Iowa.
The last player...
Specifically against Iowa, because they've always been so good against the run.
The last player to go for 200-plus rushing yards in a single game was Roy Hillu. So that tells you... It was 2014.
So it's been a while.
It's been 11 years.
Yeah.
That tells you at least how far back it's been since we had a 200-yard rusher against Iowa. I could not even imagine how long it's been. I don't know if it's been in the last 2 decades.
Well, I mean, we've only been playing them on a consistent basis for...
Either way.
That's what I mean. We played them back in the day. It's probably then, but...
Yeah. Sacks allowed by Nebraska, 2.5. We allowed 0. Matt, myself, took the under on that one. What will be higher, Emmett Johnson yards per play or Gronowski passing yards per attempt? Emmett Johnson did really well at 7.7 yards per play, but unfortunately, our secondary didn't step up the way that we wanted them to. Gronowski had a couple of big plays. He had 10.4 yards per attempt. I was the only one dumb enough to take Emmett on that one.
We did kind of goad you into that a little bit.
That's right.
We did. Just a little bit.
I also just
You can still take the loss, but we did it.
I didn't think Gronowski would have a couple of those long plays. So, who will win the turnover battle? Iowa, Nebraska, or a push? It was a push. BJ and myself took the push on that one. TJ Lateef pass attempts, 24.5. He had 24. The fans were the only ones to take the under on that one.
That's a good line.
It was. It's weird. Nebraska field goal attempts, 1.5. We had 3. Everybody took the over on that one. What will be higher? Catches by Nebraska leading wide receiver, which ended up being Dane Key at 3, or pressures allowed by Iowa's offensive line. Now, the interesting thing is I phrased this question this way on purpose because I just said the offensive line. They also, as a team, they gave up 3, but the offensive line only gave up 2. So the higher number is the catches by Nebraska's leading wide receiver. BJ and the fans got that one right. Who will have a better offensive third down conversion percentage? Iowa, Nebraska, or push? Iowa was at 58%. Nebraska was at 33.1 or 33.3. The fans got that one right.
And we all took Nebraska, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Mark Gronowski passing yards 149.5. He had 166. The funny thing is in conference play, Nebraska was allowing 166 per game, and they allowed 166 to Gronowski. So it's kind of weird that
That's
they
wild.
literally hit the average.
That's wild.
For totals,
The thing about that was the most frustrating, it felt like he had like 400 yards passing because of the explosive plays in the pass game.
Yeah.
We were doing everything we could to sell out and stop the run, even if our guys were constantly in the wrong place. But it was not like we were not trying to stop the run. We were doing that, and it was costing us big chunks in the pass game.
it's almost like they saw that happen against Penn State.
Maybe.
Totals, BJ, you had 5 correct. Matt had 4. I had 4. The fans went 6 and 3 on the questions.
Good job, fans.
Tip of the cap. Tip of the cap.
As far as people on YouTube, the winners of the week were Frank Romano and Jacob Wern. They each had 7 of the 9 correct. The losers of the week were Steve Dean, Travis Morgan, who only had 3 correct. Other notables, Lee Holbein got 4 correct. He is butthurt that he did not beat you, BJ. He said, I just want to beat BJ.
Sorry, Lee. You keep calling me out, man.
And Emmett said that if he beats 2 of us, then he buys the beers. He tied with 2 of us. So,
Oh, wow.
guess I don't know what that means.
Sounds like we buy the beers.
Yeah.
If he meets up with us.
No picks from Julie, by the way.
No picks from Julie.
No.
Come on.
She gave up.
Come on,
She's pissed off.
Julie.
Maybe she was hungover from Thanksgiving or something. I don't know.
Well, maybe she was so excited about the game she just forgot. I don't know.
By the way, we still have one more game plus our preseason prop bets. The totals, if you just go off percentage, BJ and Matt, you have both 50% correct.
Exactly.
The fans have 50% correct. And I have 47.6 correct. I'm 3
Wow.
I'm 3 behind you guys. So
That's
it's
wild.
literally going to come down to the bowl game and the preseason props.
Nice.
I will say of the preseason props that basically have the answers done already, my chances are really, really high. to at least catch up. I'm not saying to win, but to at least catch up with those 3 that I'm behind,
Oof.
my chances are pretty good.
So we've all done really average this
Yes.
year.
Exactly average at a 50-50 margin.
Yeah.
That's
So
that's
it's
wild.
going to come down to the last game and the preseason picks. So
Wow.
Let's go Utah.
yeah, I don't know.
The only other
It might
thing.
be Arizona State, and we can play Jeff Sims.
Oh, that would be fun. That would be fun, wouldn't it?
Nothing like getting 800 fucking fumbles
He
to
had
get
3
the game
interceptions
going.
in this last game.
Yeah, he still looks like Jeff Sims.
Yeah.
He had one good game for him.
But he is a running quarterback, and
That
our
might-
defense.
Who knows what the defense is going to
Yeah, we'll
look
see what it
like?
looks like under a different coordinator.
We'll roll right into that, honestly, because that's obviously a big hot topic this week. Getting rid of John Butler. Matt has some pretty strong opinions on this that I'm going to let him roll for a second, and we can kind of talk about that after.
I don't have to roll for very long. I think it was a mistake. Yeah, He gave him 1 year, and he had a top 25 defense overall. Yes, the rush defense had a ton of room for improvement. He also clearly thought he had more on the defensive line than he did. We were replacing two guys who were phenomenal from the year before with somebody, at least two dudes who just weren't as good as we thought they were going to be this year. Riley Van Poppel, from a lot of analysts, was supposed to be that big monster in the middle of the line, and he didn't play a ton of snaps, and B, he wasn't the guy we thought he was going to be yet. He could still turn into that. I don't know. But the whole move to me just felt premature. He had a fantastic secondary, and I think we fucked up on this one.
I agree a little bit on it was just 1 year, because I don't like and I know that's what the sport is now. You just get rid of people, no big deal, nobody cares. I would have probably preferred to have at least another season to see, because of not just with what you said, but also the overall youth of the defense that we had this year.
Very young.
Youth inexperience was a giant key to this defense. But also at the same time, I can't ignore the numbers. I know you said we have a top 25 defense as far as total defense, but going back to kind of one of our preseason prop bet questions, I always ask you guys when I say let the over-under ranking on one of our defensive stats, do you want to do total defense or scoring defense? What matters is scoring defense. And we're like 53rd or 57th in scoring defense. It's great that our pass defense is number 2 or 3 in the country, but our rush defense is like 97th. Last year we had a top 20 defense, or the last 2 years we had a top 20 defense, basically because our rushing defense was in the top 20s and our pass defense was in like the 50s and 60s. Nobody really cared because we had a good good rush defense and we had good scoring defense. It kind of correlated between having a good rush defense, a better scoring defense, a good passing defense, a worse scoring defense that we had this year. Also, our red zone scoring defense was second to last in the entire country.
It was really bad.
In conference, it was the opponent scored 100% of the time when they got into the red zone. So it's like,
you remember mid-season, just on that specific point. Remember mid-season when we talked about how he's running an NFL style defense, which is bend, don't break, tighten up in the red zone, which we were really good at last year.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, we hadn't seen it quite yet, because I think we'd only really played, I think this was right after the Michigan game, maybe the Michigan State game, but we hadn't seen a ton of scoring inside the red zone yet. And then we got into the meat of the Big Ten schedule, and it was like, well, the whole bend, don't break thing only works if you don't break.
Mm-hmm.
And they were giving up the chunk plays middle of the field, and then just letting people in when they got down there.
Yeah.
Look, I am not at all saying that he had a fantastic defensive season. I'm saying he had one season.
I agree.
You didn't even give him the chance to correct it or to get some guys in here who could do the job that he needed them to.
That part I completely agree with.
Both Riley Van Poppel and Keona Davis did not perform as well as we wanted them to this year. And he thought those were the guys.
Yep. We all did.
Yeah. You don't see a guy.
We weren't the only ones. We had. You could see analysts. Fucking the first game that came out for NCAA, they thought Riley Van Poppel was going to be the next Ndamukong Suh. Essentially, he was fantastic to play with. He had crazy numbers after sitting out a season.
Our previous defensive line coach
did not show up this year.
Our previous defensive line coach had Keona Davis as the next Ndamukong Suh as well.
Absolutely,
literally said it to the media.
Yeah.
I've struggled with this big time back and forth, because I can literally see it both ways. And I know I told you guys, hey, I want to be able to come in and debate some things, some of the things we're going to bring up, not this portion, and play devil's advocate and be able to toss it back and forth. But this one, I've literally gone roller coaster back and forth on, because you look at what all the numbers are, and it's literally like split. It's literally split. You can look at great things. You can see that we're top 25 scoring defense. We were one of the last teams. We were the last Power 4 school to allow over 400 yards in a game for the whole season. I think we made it through 10 games without allowing 400 total yards. We didn't allow a single opponent until Penn State to score over 27, I think it was, something like that. But then you throw the rush defense out there, and you look at how it controlled almost all of our games. almost all of our games, if we had even a mid-50s level rush defense, we're looking at probably at least a 10-win season.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
And the Michigan or in the Penn State and the Iowa games look completely different.
Yeah.
So you could be looking at a playoff team if we had even some semblance of a rush defense. And I'm sorry, but you can look across the country. The argument of the 3-3-5 or what the scheme is, I don't really care about that argument right now.
No,
and if you want to poke a hole in it from a side of defending the scheme itself, go look at the top defensive units in the country.
Jed, you sent us
Several of
that
them.
stat. There were like 8 teams in the top 20 defenses that run a 3-3-5.
Texas,
There was
Georgia.
12 of the top 20. That
There
I
you go.
counted out.
There you go.
Yeah,
So
they run a base 3-3-5. But again, you don't always just have 3 guys down.
The
relax.
base scheme is a bullshit argument to
Yes,
make.
I
period.
agree.
Where I think we saw more problems, just schematically, was in, I think, probably from the teaching side of things.
Mhm.
I think he is definitely an NFL guy who is used to dealing with people that have a little bit higher acuity, or mental acuity, when it comes to understanding and taking what he's saying and putting it on the field. The further we got into the season, the more you saw linebackers and DBs out of position in run fits. The more you saw guys that were simple technique things on the line where you're basically standing up and getting turned sideways immediately, which takes all of your leverage away as a D lineman, and taking themselves out of the play before the play's even halfway begun. I mean, simple things like that. And I don't know if it was by a certain point of the season, some of the guys had started to give up on the idea of playing for John Butler. Maybe that's some of it. The other side of me goes, is this a correction of a mistake that he made last year? Because everybody, I think, knows that John Butler was probably not the number 1 pick for Matt Rhule. He struck out on a few names and settled on John Butler. Otherwise, that search doesn't take 3 or 4 weeks like it did.
I don't think it took that long.
It was a long time.
I thought it was just a few days
It
because
was pretty immediate.
the players came out and were like, "We want John Butler."
I'll have to go back and look at it, but I'm pretty positive it was at least 3 or 4 weeks.
I really don't think it
Now
was,
that we're
but
talking
that's-
about what the players want, I mean, we've already heard the rumor mill, which take that as you will, but it sounds like some of the players didn't want to play for John Butler anymore.
Yeah.
And that might have been more to do with this than how the defense performed this year.
and if
Because the players didn't want him, and maybe he wasn't getting along with Rhule, and I'm sure we'll find out more about that as the weeks go by, but this to me feels weird. It felt premature.
and it's one of those where it's like, if the players are the ones that went to bat for Butler to get the job in the first place, that's cool. They clearly loved him as an assistant.
Yeah.
But if it's true that they had problems with him as the main guy,
How did it go wrong so quick?
sometimes people aren't good as the main guy.
On the word on the street, and this is the street that here's from people that are inside the building, is that there was a lot of tension the last month or so of the season, and a lot of that had to do with attitudes and things like that. And then you see, and this has really stuck to me since Rhule's post-game press conference after the Iowa game. He used the word toxic and toxic people 2 different times, and talked about how I'm going to surround myself with people that aren't toxic, and I'm going to figure out how to fix this. And that to me was like, is there like a straight up just rift between these 2 dudes, and that's part of what led to this? Because and I posed you guys this question right after it happened, is this a scenario where Matt Rhule said, I want to run the 3-3-5 defense. This is what we're going to run. If you want the job, this is how you're going to do it. And Butler came to find that he didn't want to run it that way and that there was the friction that way? Or was this Butler wanted to hold on to the 3-3-5, wasn't very good at it, and wasn't getting the support from the head guy who was trying to push him to go do something else? Because you bring in Snow, who he's a top level D coordinator. He's been a D coordinator in the NFL. He's been a great D coordinator at the college level, not in the Big Ten, but the guy's got acumen, and he's there. He's there with a head coach that also has a good defensive background and has always had good defenses. Why couldn't this get fixed? That's where I'm like, was this, because we all know that there was tension between him, John Butler, and Tony White last year, and schematic friction there. So I don't know. The whole thing just felt weird, and the fact that he didn't make any of the normal public statement of support and hey, go find a new job. And, I really like this guy. It just didn't work here and all these things. It was just a cut and dry. This is business. He didn't work out. Bye.
Well, I think one of the biggest pillars of Matt Rhule in general is having a good run defense. Something that he will not stand for, not having a good run defense. And again, 97th in the country in rush defense this year. And we heard it during the Penn State game with Todd Blackledge, where he talked about how one of the things that NFL coordinators do, or NFL coaches in general, they build their defenses from the back to the front. And that's probably why we had such a really good pass defense this year, because we had a defensive backs coach as our defensive coordinator, and he's used to building it from the back to the front. Well,
he's also never built it in the NFL.
Well, no, but that's his culture.
That's where he came from for the last 11 years. Yeah.
So it's like, that could also play a giant factor into why Rhule is like, okay, this clearly isn't going to work because you are not going to be able to stop the run. Even if it's maybe him going to Butler and saying, what in the hell do you have to change to, fix this run defense? And he's like, not that he's going to say, I don't know.
Butler outlaid that to the media before the Iowa game. That's the other thing to me is this. He had a plan. He had a move forward plan. And this seems like this caught Butler off guard.
This feels more emotional to me than that. This didn't seem like a business move to me. This seemed like I don't like this guy, or my players don't like this guy, or a combination of the two. And therefore I'm going to get rid of him.
That's pretty fair.
That especially for a guy who comes in and he preaches a 3-year plan, and then you can a dude after one season. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I like I said, that part of it I agree with, but
part of the reason that also feels so foreign to you, it's the first time it's happened at Nebraska, at least in the last 50 years, where a coordinator has been let go after his first year. And
I'd like to know where it's happened anywhere.
And the head coach didn't get fired with him.
Agreed. That's my thing. It doesn't make any sense. Unless it was more of an emotional thing. I don't like the dude. Get him out of here.
Yeah. I don't know. It's strange. Do you guys have any thoughts on the names that are floating around out there? Do you think that maybe he's got something lined up?
What are some of the names?
Well, first of all, the first phone call has to be to Jim Knowles.
Yeah. You have to at least shake that tree.
Yeah. Justin Wilcox.
Lucky Jim Knowles.
Justin Wilcox just got fired from Cal. He was a really good defensive coordinator. He's been around the block. He's been at Boise State, Tennessee, Washington, USC, and Wisconsin as a defensive coordinator. Mike Stoops.
He was the dude who did the 1 year before Jim Leonhard at Wisconsin, had a good year at Wisconsin, and then got the Cal job, if I understand correctly.
Well, Wilcox wasn't a head coach at Wisconsin.
No. He's the DC.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Mike Stoops just got fired from Kentucky.
Is that official?
Yeah. They already hired their
they hired the
offensive coordinator
or the offensive coordinator from Oregon. Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure he'll go back to being a DC. He's been a head coach long enough that maybe not. But again, you make the phone call.
Yeah.
And then obviously what you just said, Jim Leonhard, who is the assistant head coach at the Broncos right now, passing game coordinator, played at Wisconsin, great player there, defensive coordinator there for 1 year. Those are at minimum the 4 phone calls you make. See what happens.
They all sound fantastic. Do you guys think they have a conversation with Phil Snow?
No, he's too old. Oh, also, the other guy would be Jeff Collins, former defensive coordinator with Rhule, who was the head coach at Georgia Tech previously. He's a good defensive coach too. Outside of that,
I feel like if to go back to your Snow comment, if Snow was the guy, he would have taken the job last year.
Well, he's not. He's
I think it was
not.
probably offered to him last year. And he said, "No, if you want me to come in, I'll come in and I'll help, but I'm not going to be the main guy."
He's definitely not the guy, but I think if you make those first 4 or 5 phone calls and you get no's, do you think you could end up being a 1 or 2 year DC?
I don't see it.
No,
I don't see that. I think you're going to hire somebody. You have to make a big hire here because this is your last chance of your Rhule. You're not going to get to fire your DC again a year or 2 from now. Like this is a job save, make or break it job hire right here. The one other name that I hadn't seen on anything else yet, and this guy I've got to give a shout out to. I don't know. It's Josh Red Dot Corn on X.
It's got to be his last name.
Jay Horton 42. Shout out to him.
I think that's his birth name.
Yeah, probably. Red.corn.
Red.corn.
We need to stay away from that one. Anyway,
What did you eat last night?
he posted out this one.
Pornhub.
It's an interesting set of stats that he put together, but a name that I hadn't heard brought up yet on this, and maybe he's available, maybe he's not. But Brent Pry, the guy who just got let go from Virginia Tech, the stacked up stats of his last 5 years average as a DC, average year rank total defense was 18. Points per game was under 20. Yards per game was 212.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
Passing yards per game was 212. Rushing yards per game was 137. Total yards per game 350, and sacks 40.2 per year.
I forgot about him being available. after
Averaged
getting
out
fired
over
from-
5 years, over 40 sacks.
from Virginia Tech. Yeah, and he left Penn State to go to Virginia Tech, so he knows the Big Ten.
Yes, and when
Yeah.
I look at, he was at Penn State DC twice, twice under Franklin. When I look at all the stats that are compiled here, he's got Jim Leonhard on here. He's got Brent Pry, Ryan Walters, Trent Bray, Justin Wilcox. Nebraska's mixed in here over the last 5 years. Joe Rossi, Scott Simmons, and Elijah Robinson, the guy who's getting let go from Syracuse. Who was the guy we were actually talking about when Rhule came in? If you remember, he was the D-line coach at Texas A&M, and he was making a move.
As soon as you say his name, I'm going to know it, but I can't think of it right now.
Elijah Robinson.
Yes.
That's who it is.
As soon as you hear it, I'm be like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he's only been up at Syracuse for 2 years, and this year they fell the fuck apart.
Yeah,
so
they're bad.
he had a good year last year, bad year this year. But yeah, that Brent Pry, that'd be an interesting name. That I've also seen the guy, I can't remember his name, the guy down at SMU. He was a guy that was supposedly on the list last year. They had a really good year last year. He has not looked like their defense did not look good this year. So
Well, their team overall, they lost a lot of folks.
they also
and-
play in the ACC.
Yeah.
It's not the same, especially this year's ACC. It's not the same. But outside of that, I mean, there's been no rumors that any of us have heard about.
I mean, it's been a day, so no.
Yeah. But the way that he was let go, it almost felt like, okay,
Get
I've
him
got
out so we
somebody
can
else-
get this other guy in.
I've got somebody else lined up. Like, let's go. And you would think with National Signing Day happening tomorrow that they'd want to make some sort of an announcement. That's obviously not something that they're worried about when it comes to the kids that are coming in.
I was going to say, I don't think anybody who's signing tomorrow or who's already committed and is just dotting it out tomorrow, none of that's going to change, whether you hire somebody or not.
I hope not.
Well, I think it does signal to us that we're probably going to be able to hold on to Addison Williams unless the new DC that's coming in has a big opposition to that, because that's where our big
And maybe that's why you wait.
that's where our big defensive signing is on that side of things tomorrow. Is we've got a 4 by one source and a 5-star by another source corner coming in, that Odom out of Florida. He's a big piece of this year's class that they expect to be able to come in and contribute next year.
That might be why you wait then.
You've got
you
a
get
strong
these guys
connection.
coming in.
So,
Strong
okay.
connection with Addison Williams there.
Thankfully, moving forward, what do you do with the new defensive coordinator? Do you allow him to clean house and do what he needs to do with the assistants? Or is it kind of like a Dana Holgorsen coming in and he only replaces one guy?
Do you think that Dana wasn't given the opportunity to do the replacement of anybody else?
I don't know that for sure. It's kind of weird that he didn't replace anybody else, so it kind of looks like he wasn't.
I agree.
Now, granted, I mean, they also kind of fired Garrett McGuire. So,
yeah.
it's kind of like they had an opening. We don't technically have an opening on the defensive side right now. But do you allow the new defensive coordinator to clean house if wanted?
I think I'm okay with it either way.
I think I'm okay with it either way. Honestly, I don't see Rhule being able to let Dvorak walk out the door. I don't see that happen, even though the linebacker room did not take a step forward this year.
As much as I love Dvorak, that room did not do what
They
I
didn't live up
expected
where we
them-
expected.
Nope.
They didn't live up where we expected. The only player that I thought we got all we could have out of this year was Shavers, and that's mostly because he didn't take as big of a step forward as I expected, but he was also massively injured for 3/4 of the year.
He didn't take a step back at all.
He did not take a step back, including having a club on his freaking hand.
Yes.
I think you let Terry Braden go if you need to. The D-line did not do what they needed to this year.
And he's a guy that I really would like to see another year. But again, as I brought up before, he's also that technician NFL style guy. Maybe that doesn't work at the college level, especially with a room full of super young dudes.
Mm-hmm.
Phil Simpson and Addison Williams, both of them, I think, if you can retain them, you should.
You brought Phil Simpson back from Florida State after losing him for a year because of his recruiting.
Yeah.
I think you keep him on staff regardless, and I don't think that he was coming back unless he was promised a position spot.
Yeah.
But then again, depending on who you hire from the DC perspective, you might have to give him if Jim Knowles takes the job and you think that he's not going to have a say over that's like hiring Dana Holgorsen to come in and saying, nope, Dana, you can't fire anybody. Sorry.
Also, you need to hire somebody who is okay with an overlord over your shoulder and Phil Snow. I don't think he's going anywhere. He's a co-defensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to have a say in what you're doing. That you're kind of
not making
pigeonholing yourself into a specific place where you can hire somebody.
No, you're not making any of these big name hires and having Snow be
That's my point.
An overlord.
That's my point.
He's not going to be sticking around in that capacity. And I don't think he was an overlord of any sorts with John Butler. Otherwise, you have to
I don't think
send
we
them out
know
the door
that.
together.
No, I think maybe he didn't get along with Phil Snow. And Phil Snow snays and John Butler's gone.
I don't know. That's a reach for me.
Well, that's my point, is we don't actually understand what happened here because it's weird that we fired him after 1 year.
Yeah.
So you might have to find somebody who can get along with Phil Snow and maybe we'll bring in a guy or two, or maybe not.
So this kind of leads right into my first actual debate question that I wanted to talk about. Is Nebraska an attractive job right now for a high-level coordinator to come in?
Yes. Money.
Everybody's got money right now, except for Colorado.
We were going to talk about that.
if you haven't yet, just to throw shade at Colorado, because fuck them. If you haven't yet, go look up what their current financial situation is.
It's great.
It was released today.
Just don't go work there
Pretty funny.
or play there.
Well, you'll be donating your time if you're going to get hired on in Colorado, right?
Because they'll be asking you to donate your money.
I was going to say they'll ask you to donate more than just time.
Yeah. Jesus.
No, I think at least it's still a attainable job. I think it's a job that people would desire.
It's a high-profile Big Ten job, so yes, it's attractive.
Okay, but, and here's me playing devil's advocate, because I do agree with that statement. You got Matt Rhule, who is, if there's not a significant step up next year, is going to be on the hot seat. So you might be in here for 1 year, depending on what next year looks like. You're taking that risk. You've got essentially a full rebuild on the defensive side of the ball that's going to have to happen.
Yeah.
You're going to be dealing with dudes that you didn't recruit for this first season. You're going to be dealing with dudes, unless they get him in here in the next week or two, dudes that you didn't get out of the portal that you wanted. Like, all that work for the portal is being done in December, and that's all going to happen in the first week or two of January when that portal opens.
Well, again,
all the big money dudes are going to be coming out right away.
I don't think we wait that long to hire somebody. I don't think you make the move if you don't already have somebody.
By the way, not to go back to what we were saying, and I did look it up. It was 8 days as far as between
cool.
Tony White leaving and
felt
Butler
like a
being
year.
promoted. But,
Felt like a year.
But yeah, if it gets announced in the next, say, 2 weeks, then
You have that time for the portal.
Then you have time for the portal to open up at the beginning of January.
Do you agree? It's an attractive job.
Yeah. You got money, not just for yourself, but you got money to pay players. And it's a high profile. I'm not saying high level because we're not there yet. It's a high profile Big Ten job. So yes.
That's
also,
fair.
You're still looking at a team, assuming you can retain the players on offense that you need, who can score a lot of points and still go out and win games.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you are confident in yourself and you aren't thinking, I need to play this safe because he might get fired in a year because I don't do my job well enough, I think you can attract a lot of people to this
Also,
job.
most coaches, especially at this level, they're not going into it hesitating. They're not going into it saying, "Oh, I might only be there." No,
They can't.
They're going into it saying, "I'm going to be fucking successful and we're going to win."
You're not making it to that level coaching if you're not saying that.
Yeah, exactly.
I get that.
So it's
Also, when you're making that much money, you're not that worried about next year's stability.
I disagree with that.
I mean, that's
disagree with
kind of
that.
more of a joke thing, but yes.
My follow-up question is on the offensive side of the ball. My question is this. Is Dana Holgorsen outdated? Is he washed? Has he lost touch?
I guess also, we kind of talked about this with the defense. How many fingers does Rhule have in the cookie jar?
There's that.
I don't know that we'll ever know that. I hope that the answer is 0.
Well, here's the deal,
Because
right?
you don't bring in a guy like Dana and fuck with it.
Well, you don't.
I also don't want the answer to be 0. He's your head coach.
You don't, but at the same time, maybe this is a prideful thing on Dana's side of things to be able to say, hey, I'm going to come in and I'm just going to take the scheme that you have, the playbook that you have, the language that you have, and I can learn it. I'm just going to run with it, and I'll make it work the way that I want it to work.
I understand that for the end of the season last year, but not for this year.
No, but that's what he did. And he even, I went back and found a press conference preseason where he talked about, no, I'm still running that offense. We didn't change any of the language or any of that. I didn't rework everything over the offseason. I just learned it really well. We stripped down all the stuff that wasn't going to work or wasn't going to play the way that I wanted it to. And, it's my offense, but I'm running the offense that was here. And so my question is that a directive by Rhule, or is that Dana in his hubris thinking I can make anything work and I'll jump on it?
I mean, of course, as usual, Matt and Dana know better than I do.
100%.
But
Also, just
I
as a
appreciate your
caveat,
confidence in me.
just
Yeah,
as
you.
a caveat
I bet
to
you.
all these conversations, at no point are any of us advocating for anybody to get fired. We're also not trying to talk shit. We're literally just asking the questions and
I'm definitely trying to talk shit.
debating it.
I mean, I'm giving my opinion, but I'm not going to pretend that my opinion, first of all, means a damn thing.
Supersedes
But,
anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
These guys all know that. It's fine.
Well, there's some comments that are like, oh, you guys. Anyway, I would hope, again, with the history of Dana, not that it's always been great with him and his offenses, but the history of him as an offensive play caller, I would hope that he would be able to come in here and do whatever the hell he wanted to. I wouldn't have said, yeah, you have to run our offense. And I'm not saying that that's what Rhule said. And Dana probably was, yeah, I can mix in a little bit of both or whatever else. I've been like, hey, Dana, what do you want to do? You want to run this offense? Cool. If you don't, cool. If you want to run some of it, cool.
Do you feel like he tried to evolve too much? I mean, he came in here and said he doesn't want to be the same high-flying offense that he was, 10 years ago. But it worked.
Because he said many times about how he has drifted away from the air raid Mike Leach offense for
worked.
years. But does it still work?
I don't know. Did this work?
Which is why he has talked about how he has kind of drifted away from it. Does it still
Should
work?
we drift back? Is my question.
Well, Jed, numbers.
I mean, the history says that it's going down. And, we talked about it, how we need to stretch the field. The last handful of weeks of prop bet questions, I had how many passes beyond 10 yards, how many passes beyond 20 yards. And that wasn't just a TJ Lateef thing with Raiola out. The entire season, we didn't throw the ball downfield enough. Is that a receiver issue? Is that a quarterback issue? Is that one of my friends brought up, is that an offensive line issue that he didn't have time? One of the things that I did look up, once my friend said about the offensive line, I looked up all the Power 4 schools that have allowed 30 or more sacks on the season. And Nebraska is third last in combined percentage of throws past 10 yards.
Wow.
Only 31.1% of their throws went beyond 10 yards the entire season.
Who are the other two?
Auburn and Stanford at 25.4 and 28.3. Of the 15 schools that gave up 30 or more sacks in the Power 4, Rutgers threw it 44.8% of the time beyond 10 yards.
Wow.
So we just did not even try to throw the ball downfield. I don't know why that is. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense as to why we wouldn't have, because we thought we had talented wide receivers with Dane Key and Isaiah Hunter and Ja'Cory Barney.
Not thought. They are talented.
Yeah.
So we didn't give them enough opportunities.
And we heard in the preseason, Hunter can really take the top off of defense.
Mm-hmm.
Ja'Cory Barney is the fastest guy on the offense. He should be able to take the top off of a defense.
Hunter can take the top off the defense. What are his longest touchdowns? Screens.
Yeah.
I mean,
and he's great at them. Don't get us wrong. And in my opinion,
more like he pants to the defense and then ran.
In my opinion, he was our most complete wide receiver this year.
Yeah.
But he wasn't given the opportunity to go catch anything down the field.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not like we didn't complete the balls downfield. Of passes between 10 and 19 yards, we completed 56% of those passes. Of passes beyond 20 yards downfield, 34.2% of the passes. I know 34.2 isn't great, but just now sorting these out of these teams, I mean, it's fifth to the bottom. So, I mean, it's not great, but at the same time, we weren't the worst.
Yeah.
So it's, and then as far as Dana in the history of his career as a play caller, whether it's at West Virginia or Houston or here, I went back to 2014 because for whatever reason on Pro Football Focus, it stopped at 2013 for Dana. So that's why I stopped at 2014. It was the lowest percentage of passes beyond 10 yards in his entire career this year at Nebraska at 31.1. The second lowest is 33.8.
And you said that was last year at Houston.
Yeah,
right?
it was his last year at Houston in 2023. Yeah.
So he's like the last 2 seasons, he's taken a step back.
Yeah. Just for reference, last year at Nebraska, this isn't just the last 4 games at Dana, just as a season whole, we threw the ball downfield past 10 yards 35.6% of the time. So 4% more, 4.5% more times we threw the ball downfield, basically without Dana.
And when you're talking about the percentage, that sounds like a bigger number than it is. We're only talking about maybe 2 or 3 more pass attempts per game.
Yeah.
But 2 or 3 more times stretching the defense pulls more pressure off of your run game.
Well, just 20 plus yards downfield, it was 10.8% of the time this year. Like, that he just didn't even attempt to stretch the field. And that's with a running back that was running the way Emmett Johnson was.
Yeah.
Imagine how much better Emmett could have been if the defense actually was scared of a
Pass
distant-
beyond 10 yards.
Yeah. I mean, that also goes to show how good Emmett Johnson was. But I don't know what Dana is trying to do, or just this offense. Maybe I know he's the offensive coordinator, so it's up to him, but I don't know what this offense is trying to do. I really don't.
And it seemed like it was confused before Dylan got hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this is all without the whole shift from Dylan to Latif.
No.
And this can go back to the conversation we had about Dylan kind of taking a step back in that week 4 through 6 range, both seasons.
which
back
is
to
also
back.
something that needs to be understood.
That's where I keep going back to this. Is this a personnel thing, just like we think a lot of the defensive stuff was, or is this a Holgorsen trying to square peg round hole with his playbook or not his playbook, and still trying to get these plays out there? Is this a lack of confidence in your quarterback? Is it a lack of confidence in any sort of pass protection? I just like the questions that I have are not something that I feel like can be answered unless they're directly answered and addressed, like explained how they're going to be addressed, or we see some sort of coaching shifts.
Yeah. Going to what you said, Matt, as far as this, it wasn't like just with Latif, or, this is also going on before with Raiola. This year, between games 1 through 9, when Raiola was in there, we threw the ball 10 plus yards downfield 10% of the time, or 20 plus yards downfield 10% of the time. With Latif, the last 3 games, it was 13.1% of the time.
We actually did it more
We did it more often.
with a less accurate. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. To me, then I understand what you're saying.
He missed several. He didn't miss. Before he got hurt in the Iowa game, he dropped some dimes down the field that the receivers just fucked up on, like just didn't catch.
Yeah.
Dane Key had one go right off his fingertips. It's like, dude, like haul that ball in. There's a couple more game-changing moments.
Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying with we can't answer these questions ourselves, obviously, but I'm going to pontificate because we're just an opinion
That's
show.
what we do.
I think Dana is trying to be something that he's not.
That's kind of where I was going in my head as well, where it just seems like he is not doing what he's comfortable with.
He has a mind for the passing game.
Yeah.
Use your mind for what it's good at.
Yeah.
And then bring in a coordinator, like an assistant, running back coach, whatever you need to, who can then help you with the running game. Go do what you're good at. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. There is some form of being uncomfortable with these play calls. It just has to. I don't know how else to phrase it, because he's clearly not doing, again, you go back to his career through West Virginia and Houston, and 2017, he threw the ball beyond 10 yards 46% of the time. That wasn't all that long ago.
And he's not washed, to your original question. He's not getting old. He's 54. He's in a prime age to still be coaching and still be very sound of mind. He's not doing anything wrong. He's just trying to be something that he's not.
Yeah, I got 12 seasons on here. Half of them were 40% or more beyond 10 yards. 2 of them were 39%. So you got 8 seasons out of 12.
And he's never had a quarterback talent like Dylan.
No.
He's never had one.
Not physically, no.
That's what I mean. So what I'm
He's
saying
created
is,
some, but
Yeah,
yes.
I'm not saying he hasn't created good quarterbacks. I'm saying he hasn't had a 5-star Rolls Royce ready-made coming in the door. Hey, let's roll this puppy out and see what it can do.
Yeah.
That's what my biggest confusion is with it. And it's one of those, is he scared? Is he confused? Or is he washed? I don't have the opinion that he's washed.
I don't either.
And this leads right into my next.
I definitely don't think he's scared.
My next debate question is: do we have an identity crisis on our hands in the program
as a whole, or
as a whole for the program? But to take it a step further, do we have an identity crisis on our hands with the head man, Matt Rhule?
I think he knows what he wants. I don't. This was one of the questions going into him being hired, because the college football landscape is so drastically different than the last time he was in college football. I know it was only like 3 years,
Which is
but
weird to say
it changed dramatically.
It did.
So I know what he wants, and I feel like he has adapted to it well. But I'm to be completely honest, I'm starting to question if he knows how to get there.
Well, I guess,
in answer to your question, yes, I think there is an identity crisis.
I guess when I think of an identity crisis, I think more about, like, if you are a high profile person in a major leadership role, you have to be very certain in who you are as an individual before you are going to be able to lead people in a convincing manner. I don't know what Matt Rhule was like before he came to Nebraska, but I know what I felt like he was. At least it seemed like he knew who he was and what he was when he came in here. And that's not the same Matt Rhule that gets on the podium with us week to week anymore. Matt Rhule was a confident, professional head coach who knew what the program was and knew what the program was that he was building, and he knew that what he had a final picture of what that looked like. And all of a sudden, over the last season and a half, and people change, like, don't get me wrong, but it almost seems like he has almost like a personal identity crisis from a standpoint of he's started wearing flashy gear on the podium and wearing giant change outside of his clothes, and he kind of has moments where he's excited about things, where he talks different than Matt Rhule normally would talk, and it's like, it sounds like he's trying to be cool. It sounds like he's trying to fit in with the kids and
losing a bunch of weight and then posing with the cows.
That I think is dorky Matt Rhule, and that I have no problems with that. I have more of the problem with, are you trying too hard to be one of the guys that you're losing what it is to be a leader of a major program? Because you don't see, like, Kirby Smart dresses up like a 50-year-old lesbian every time he goes out like to do anything.
I'm not convinced he's not a 50-year-old lesbian.
I'm not trying to torch Rhule for this. I'm legitimately asking the question, is he dealing with some sort of an identity crisis from a standpoint of he's trying so hard to be liked that he's not being a leader anymore? And that's where, like, this, to tie it all back together, you have an offensive coordinator that doesn't seem comfortable in his own skin right now, calling his own plays. You have a defensive coordinator that didn't seem to understand the scheme that he was trying to put on the field and couldn't convey that to the players in order to get it accomplished, to make it look like anything. That's an identity crisis. That is a leader not knowing how to lead his people, to have them understand the vision that he has for what this is supposed to look like. And I'm saying you general, or I'm saying leader general, because Dana isn't getting it done on the offensive side of the ball. Butler didn't get it done on the defensive side of the ball. If they're so uncomfortable in doing what they're doing, where's that stemming from? And you have to look at the top.
First of all the stuff that you said as far as with Matt Rhule and the outside stuff, the trying to look cool and all those things, I would disagree that hinders his leadership ability. because I think that's just the way it is now, that you have to be a salesman, especially at Nebraska. You have to be a salesman. You kind of have to be flashier than what you normally would have been in the past.
I would
That's
agree
fair.
with you, but I think Nebraska somewhat, just like Alabama or Ohio State, it sells itself to a point where you don't need to go do what Dion is doing at Colorado.
Alabama and Ohio State, well, okay, Nebraska is not where Alabama and Ohio State are right now.
No, not from a competition standpoint.
But even selling themselves, Nebraska has to be different.
Okay, LSU, Michigan, and you could pick a whole bunch of schools where you are at the school. You don't have to perform to get people to come there because you're already there.
But also going to your leadership stuff as far as with Rhule, again, I just disagree. I just look at it differently. I would say the fact that there has been so many people as far as players that have not left the program, like there hasn't been this mass exodus that everybody always says, there's going to be a mass exodus at this point. There's going to be a mass exodus at that point. We don't ever see it. So clearly he's doing something correct with the players.
That's fair. And I'm not trying to say that he's not liked by the players.
I know what
or
you're
loved by the players.
I'm just saying I'm looking at it a little differently.
Come January, we will also judge that again.
Yes, absolutely.
The main reason that I'm asking that question really is because I've gotten a little bit of I think the kids call it the ick, or it's a little cringy to look at him get up there in a chromed out Husker.
Don't quote
Husker
your wife
shirt,
as the kids.
Husker shirt, and actually I was quoting my daughter who's 5 and going to kindergarten. She said the ick the other day.
I've heard Tabitha say the same things. Tabitha.
Anyway, giant
Peyton.
chain, and he's up there and he's trying to talk like he's one of the cool kids, and it made me think of Brian Kelly doing weird fucking TikTok dances with recruits that now has come out after the fact, after he's been fired. Yeah, we all thought that was stupid and terrible, and yeah, he's the head coach at LSU, so we have to respect him, but him trying to be one of the boys, he's not one of the boys. Like, stop trying to be one of the boys. Be their leader. Be their head coach.
Again, I agree. I get your point. I agree with you to an extent, but it's also kind of with like the bull thing and stuff like that. I just say that it's not for me. If it's for you and it's for the players and it's for, the attractiveness, or that doesn't bring me in, that's fine. You go do what you need to do.
But that's my point. Ryan Day's not going and doing that bullshit.
Ryan Day's winning national championships.
Yeah.
It's not comparable.
He doesn't have to.
That's not comparable.
No. You guys you're missing it. We should be trying to win national championships. Hold yourself higher than TikTok dances.
That's fair too.
I'm agreeing with you. I think we are in some sort of identity crisis.
And that's where it really comes back to more for me. Is that's the individual mental side of things that leads to a trickle-down effect in the leadership side of things.
So this next thing, I'm sorry, real quickly, isn't necessarily what I always say, but I hear it from Husker fans a lot, where we built our program into doing things differently, whether it was the strength and conditioning
100%.
program, the offense that we ran, all of those things. We were always about doing something differently than everybody else across the country, and it made us successful. So that's also why I would say that's fine that Ohio State's not doing that. Nebraska, because of where we're located, all those things, we do have disadvantages where we are at. We do have to do things differently. And until we get
do them differently.
Until we get to the remote point where we can contend for national championships, once we get there, then yes, just focus on that. But we need to get there first.
No, actually, now that I've been thinking about it, I think we have a perfect case point with Lane Kiffin and whoever just got fired from LSU. Brian Kelly.
Yeah.
Brian Kelly was doing all the bullshit that we're kind of talking about Matt Rhule doing. He's getting replaced by somebody who's more old school, who's coming in to be the football coach.
Ironically, 20 years younger.
Yeah.
And yet he's not doing the TikTok dances, and he's not wearing the jewels.
He does
and
do
the
TikTok dances.
Whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With his daughter, not with the volleyball team.
I think that it comes down to like the old school parenting conversation of you need to be the parent, not the friend. And I'm not saying this is happening. I'm not saying that we've heard this from inside the program or any of those things. I'm talking strictly fan observer on the outside. When I look at what appears to be a growing identity crisis in the scheme and the overall landscape of the program, I start to look at things like what I'm talking about with that and start wondering, is he trying too hard to be the friend and not the parent in this situation?
It's funny, not that we give a shit about Nebraska basketball, but it kind of goes back to when we had Tim Miles as our coach. And early on, he used to tweet all the time, like during games, not obviously on the sidelines, but at halftime and stuff like that. And at first, everybody's like, oh, this is so funny and this is cool, this is cute. And then they kept not winning. And finally, people were like, how about,
all right, dude, knock it
about
off.
you
Maybe focus on the team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of those, like, if you're winning, whatever the fuck you do is perfectly fine.
Yes.
If you're not winning, then maybe you need to tweak some things and not do that anymore and blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of one of those, it's a little bit of both of what we're all saying. Like, Ohio State doesn't have to do that because they're winning. Well, maybe we do need to do some of that stuff to start to win, and then we don't have to do that shit no more.
Yeah.
You know, Lane Kiffin doesn't have to do that at Ole Miss because they're fucking winning. Well, they were. But, you know, again, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. You know, you brought up the parenting thing. I parent a little differently. I do like being friends with my kids.
Well,
you know,
they're grown.
I'm a 5-year-old myself, so I was friends with them when they were 5 too. But it's, you know, there's more than one way to skin a cat. We can do it 1,000 different ways. It doesn't mean another way is wrong. It doesn't mean the other way is completely right.
And I think to your point,
it's a
BJ,
preference.
I think we just need to pick how we want to skin that cat and run with it for a little while.
Which also goes back to the whole firing of a defensive coordinator after 1 year. When you have constant changes, you can't have the consistency.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's tough.
Exactly.
It's tough. That's the other thing too. I mean, when to tie it back to the Dana conversation, the other thing you look at is with Dylan. Hey, Dylan changed teams basically every year through high school. Well, halfway through high school after only playing since 8th grade. He spent no more than 2 full seasons in any offensive scheme, specific offensive scheme. And then he comes here and it's like, okay, well, after your first year, now we're going to change the offensive scheme on you again. Maybe that's part of why it was, we're not going to relearn a playbook. We're not going to redo these things. I don't know. Like I said, these are all conversations that I'm literally just asking questions and we're having a conversation back and forth. Mm-hmm. I haven't even I don't have necessarily an opinion on any of these things. I'm legitimately just like, these are questions that I've had out there for me. The last question that I have is this what ails the program right now fixable in 1 year? Is this something we can turn around by this time next season? And before you jump in on it, one of the main reasons I ask that is because we've seen different changes happen, and maybe this is part of what led to the John Butler change. Maybe this is part of what's led to some of the different changes that we've seen over the last year and a half, 2 years. Little things that you hear, and this was actually a big rant that Adam Carricker put out. Rhule listens to the media and listens to the fan base a lot. And I feel like some of the moves he makes, where Matt pointed to is the Butler situation, emotional. Was that I've got to listen to the fan base because the fan base is going nuts about John Butler, and they've been, half of them have been torn on him all season long. They never were sold on him from the beginning. And now we're back half of the year and it's just falling apart on us. I got to fire him because the fan base is pissed. Is this him being too easily influenced from outside opinions? This, again, it speaks back to the identity crisis thing. If you don't have a strong foundation of who you are as a person, who you are as a leader, who you are as a program, you're going to be easily influenced on things like that. So my question is, with all the outside noise and with all the ways that you can be pulled in different directions, is this fixable in one off season?
I will real quickly just answer your question for a second with a question. What is your fixable? Or you want me just to define it for myself?
We have to be a top 25 team all year next year.
Yeah, that ain't going to happen, so no.
Not all year, but once you get there, stay there. Win some top 25 games.
I'm not talking about factoring schedule. Yes, schedule is going to matter when it comes to rankings, but if we're not able to compete with those 3 big teams that we have on our schedule next year, if we're not able to at least play in those games in a super competitive manner, which will not ding us too badly in the rankings, if we're not able to do that and then take care of the rest of our schedule, to me, that is showing that we're not fixed and moving in the right direction.
So I'm not trying to drive us into a giant rabbit hole that we usually get down. I kind of had a similar conversation with one of my buddies the other day where I said, last year or next year with our schedule and with, players coming back, maybe not coming back, new defensive coordinator, all those things. It's on the table to be 7-5 again. and that will suck. But for me, it's about how it looks. You know, we could be 7-5 if we win our 50-50 games, and we're at least we belong on the field in those 5 other games.
Yes.
Or 4 other games if we're 8-4, whatever. If we belong on the field, again, I'm not going to be happy with it, but I'll be like, okay, I get it.
And I'll even take one route against Ohio State.
Yeah. So, you know, that's kind of why I asked, what do you do?
I'll take 3 field goals and some weird X over the end.
I'm not talking about record next year. I'm talking about the way it looks. I'm talking about an offense that seems to be running at peak capacity at the end of the season, not at the beginning. A defense that is not embarrassing to watch for half of the game.
Knowing what we know right now, as far as we have no idea who's leaving, who's coming back, all those things. We don't know who the defense coordinator is, but I do trust with our money and Rhule's ability to where he knows people who it might not be somebody that he knows absolutely directly, because Tony White wasn't really. Is visually it fixable? Yes, I believe it is. Is that tangible to something specific? I don't know.
I absolutely think it's fixable in 1 year. All of that groundwork that Matt Rhule has laid is still there. I don't think, even if it feels like he's somewhat lost his way a little bit in the last half of this season, that isn't easily something that he can recoil and gain back.
I agree.
I think if you make the right hire, if you continue to trust the staff that you do retain, continue to trust the players that you do retain, bring some extra talent in, as we've seen Matt Rhule can do, we absolutely can get better from where we were this year. There's nothing that says we can't.
Yeah.
Yes. To Jed's point, there's a lot of unknowns.
I think there has to be a couple more staff moves on both sides of the ball.
Where?
Specifically offensive line. That's got to be done. You got to bring somebody else in that's going to be more professional.
You've given him enough years.
From a standpoint of
you give Butler 1. You've given him enough years.
Yes, from a standpoint of development, you have to be able to bring somebody in who is going to move this along. I think that if Rhule can set a tone, and this is a conversation I had at work earlier today with somebody that's a big time Husker fan, and he's a very, very bright guy. He was asked
the Jed's son.
He was
both of those say it's not.
It was not. He's
a bright guy and a big Husker fan. That's not Ryan.
He's much older than Ryan and myself, actually. Sorry, Jake. We were talking about the Raiola situation and whether or not he's going, or when we think we're going to know about that and this and that. And I said, look, when it comes down to, for me, and this is some of the identity thing, kind of capping that off. Nothing is bigger than the program. Yes, obviously, family is very important. Your friends and everything in your personal life, those things are all important. But I'm talking about inside the University of Nebraska football program. Nothing is bigger than that. No one individual's family. And I think that there needs to be this is a moment for Matt Rhule to set a tone with this Raiola situation moving forward. Love everything that Dominic did for us as a player. I love everything that Dylan's done for us, or most things that Dylan's done for us as a player. And I really, really want him to be here next year. But the last 3 weeks of the season being a media circus with his family should have been snuffed out by Rhule. Yes, you can't help but have Dayton decommit. That should have been instantly followed with.
He was never going to play anyway.
That should have been instantly followed with, hey, going to Dylan and saying, hey, we need to figure out what your contract situation looks like for next year now, so that we can go ahead and put all the rumor mill to rest, and you can make sure that everybody understands you're fully committed to being a Nebraska Husker next year. And that should have been taken care of. And by the way, Dominic, stop talking to the media and creating these weird stories popping up 2 days before our Iowa game to make the entire fan base for a third week in a row go crazy about your family.
I'm really glad I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't tell me, by the way, because I don't care.
It doesn't really matter anyway.
Yeah,
I'm saying
no. I get
all of those things are distractions.
Yes, they are. Yes,
and
yes,
we
yes.
don't need a circus outside of the already giant circus that is Nebraska football.
Yep,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
like I said, no one family is bigger than the program. I think personally, you go to Dylan in the next week or two, and you say, "Here's going to be our offer. We have checked the landscape on the current quarterback market out there. This is what we think that your current value is worth to us. This is our offer, and we'd really appreciate it if you would take it and go ahead and announce your full commitment to us for next season and shut all the other noise off so that we can focus on football and getting better as a team. And if you're not willing to do that, we wish you the best of luck."
Yeah.
I think that is the best approach that they could take in this situation because, A, you can afford to lose him.
Yep.
You can afford to lose him. We've seen enough from TJ Lateef to say it's okay that you walk, Dylan. That's okay.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I disagree almost entirely with that statement. But
For me, I agree with saying that to Raiola because I also think that we have the money to go out and get a starting quarterback in the transfer portal.
That's totally fine, but then you're still talking about a whole nother hoopla.
none of us actually know if Dylan wants to leave.
If Dylan leaves, I think TJ Lateef's the guy next year.
I disagree.
Why?
Because he hasn't shown us anything to be the starting quarterback.
That can also be that's an entire other show.
I agree.
Well, this is a quick thing. I don't understand what you mean.
This is not a quick thing.
It's a quick thing.
I'm not saying that he has shown us that he can't play at all. I'm just saying he hasn't shown us that he should be the starter next year.
I'm not saying over Dylan. I'm saying that he will be a very good quarterback next year in college football.
I don't know.
The two of them look at two very different offensive schemes as well. You switch to TJ Lateef, you start looking at Dana Holgorsen. Is he the right fit for a quarterback of that style? Stuff like that. That's why I'm saying this is not
TJ Lateef fits his style more than...
This is not a quick conversation.
I think that if Dylan leaves, we can absolutely find a better starting quarterback for next year in the transfer portal. Not better than Dylan, better than TJ.
That will pay $4 million for?
Okay.
That doesn't make sense to me. That completely blows up the whole premise of stop the distractions, get better as a program.
Pay $4 million for Dylan at that point.
A guy like
you
that,
go create
that's the value.
That's my point. You make Dylan a real good offer for a quarterback of his caliber out in the market, and you say, take it or leave it, and stop with the circus. That's what you do. I think that's how you have to approach the situation because they've created a circus and they've created a distraction away from the program. That's
the family has. That doesn't mean every player that comes in that gets paid $3 million is going to be a circus.
All of those things you just said.
That's not what I'm saying.
I agree with everything you're saying.
Yeah. I'm saying there would be a new circus of going out and trying to find a quarterback and all that stuff.
I personally think we're going to try to get a transfer portal quarterback that is going to compete for the starting job, whether Dylan stays or not. So
why would we do that?
Yeah, I disagree with that too.
I think
there's a lot of other places to spend our money. Why would we do that?
We're going to learn a lot in the next month.
Yeah,
that's an interesting take. I think that's a decent place to land off. Oh wow, hot take. Jed thinks we're bringing in somebody to compete with Dylan next year.
If Dylan's still here, if TJ Lateef leaves, because I don't think both guys are coming back. I think one of them is leaving. I don't know which one. I think one of them's leaving. I mean, math says one of them's leaving. That's just the life of college football.
Then how
with
would we go
quarterbacks.
bring somebody else? Like if we're not able to pony up and keep Lateef around, and you don't think he is good enough to take Dylan's spot next year, how are we going to go spend more money to bring somebody else in that would compete against him next year?
Because we have the money to be able to bring in guys that need to be able to compete for
I think we need
job.
to spend $7 million on our defensive line. I think we need to spend all that money on the O-line and the D-line and stop fucking around with quarterbacks and wide receivers.
I'm glad it's not my money.
True story. We appreciate you guys. Hopefully this was an entertaining conversation for you. Hopefully you have also left your comments about whether or not you agree or disagree with one side of what we were debating here. Again, these were all just opinions. We don't know anything. We're just fans just like you guys. We appreciate you. Go Big Red.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.